want to introduce now, we have just now transitioned into Yom HaZikaron. You will be seeing hopefully some fireworks behind us, but now, even though we're not allowed to go outside, we are going to start the celebration with Leigh Laker, our resident artist and an amazing friend and storyteller, a lover of Israel. Hello, Leah. I think I've unmuted you. You're unmuted. All right.
Oh, good. Okay.
You're blinding us by the lights, by the way, the light that is behind you. So if you could turn your chair, that kitchen light that you have, if you could turn your chair there. Oh, that's a little bit better, actually, I think. If not, let us. Well, I think so.
I'm in my studio.
Okay, I think so, but otherwise, if it's not, maybe if you can just turn your chair a little bit. That's all right. Just go forward. It's okay. All right. If we can't see it, we'll turn the light on. Okay.
Back on. I think you don't need to see me. You need to see some of the things that I'm showing. So I don't know if you can put that up on the screen or not, but I will hold it up. I was going to go right into the meaning of the holidays and how we transition into Yom HaZikaron, but there were so many interesting things that came up with you, Kim, and with the two previous presenters. As a parent of a soldier who was in Givati Brigade during HaZikaron, Protective Edge, I had some very interesting experiences that I'd like to share with you now. For one thing, going into HaZikaron, we had just experienced a very emotional period where the three teenage boys had been kidnapped on their way home from where they were studying, and their bodies were found about 3 weeks later, 2 to 3 weeks later. They had been executed almost from the moment that they were picked up in a car by Arabs, and those boys were generally from the Modi'in area, and they are buried in the cemetery in Modi'in, along with is close to the military section in the cemetery. But that had been a very emotional experience for all of us, and we pulled together as a country. We pulled together in great unity because of that event. And then it was closely followed by HaZikaron. My son, of course, was in active duty in Givati Brigade in a special unit. And here's a painting that I did that was very meaningful to me about expressing my thoughts about that service in Givati Brigade. You can see the colors of the hills, the Givat, in the south in the Negev, and Givati Brigade, that is where their home base is. And I have a bit of the purple in the painting, which represents their berets. The berets of each brigade are a different color, and purple is the color of Givati. So this painting represents not only the hills of the Negev, but also the brigade that protects them, the Givati Brigade. So there's that link. The second link was, I'll take that down. The second link was when you mentioned previously about the feeling of people towards what was happening. Our son was in HaZikaron. He was actually out of our communication zone for about 2 weeks. We were sitting in a cafe, Ramon in Jerusalem, during that time, and a soldier happened to walk by. He had a purple beret, so my husband rushed out and asked him, "Have you seen Josh Laker?" Oh, yes, he said. I saw him just the other day and he's absolutely fine. Well, we were so relieved because we had had no word from him. He was deep inside Gaza. His unit was the second last to leave. They were on their way out and they got the message about Hadar Golden and they had to turn around and go back in. So he was indeed at the very end, one of the last groups coming out of Gaza at that time. It was one of the worst moments or periods, I guess, of our life as a parent. Our son is an only child, and I would literally stand in the kitchen preparing meals, hearing the news on the radio about another attack and the soldiers from a certain brigade had died, and I would just look at the window and say, please, Hashem, do not let me see an army vehicle driving up the street and parking outside our door. So it was a very difficult time, but as I said, people pulled together. We had friends who helped take care of us and make sure that we were not alone during the worst times. Our son is an only child, and we had to give special permission for him to go into the army and serve in combat. So it was something that made us truly part of the Israeli nation. And it was an experience not to be forgotten. It had death around it, but life, fortunately, he came back. He came back on Tisha B'Av, and I've never smiled so much on a Tisha B'Av ever. So that was an experience as a parent. Now, I would like to show you, this is a memorial, a typical memorial that Israel has for remembering the soldiers who have given their life. This one is actually on the border, one of the agricultural communities on the border with Gaza. And you can see Gaza just in the background there. It was used as a staging area. Yaakov talked about the soldiers getting ready to go into Gaza. This was one of the areas where they were. Here is another memorial, and actually I've got more to say about this in a moment, but the Yom HaZikaron, the Memorial Day for Israel, is a chance, an opportunity to remember all those who have given their lives. We remember not only the IDF soldiers, but also the victims of terrorism. At 1 o'clock today, there was a special ceremony for that. We remember police and border police who also have died in terrorist incidents. So it's really a chance for us to get together and show how much we do value, that we understand the sacrifice that these people made so that we can have life, we can continue to live. The end of the ceremony on Yom HaZikaron takes place at Har Herzl, and there's a lighting of 12 torches. The 12 torches represent the 12 tribes of Israel, and the people who were chosen to light the torches have a very special honor because they have done something very special for Israel. So that also is a way of sharing with all of us that we're all part of the enterprise. This memorial is just close to Modi'in, where I live. By the way, we made Aliyah in 2007 from Toronto, and we chose Modi'in, which is halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, to make our home. It's a real wonderful community to live in. We've never been sorry about our decision to make Aliyah. We found, as has been mentioned previously, a very special spirit of vibrancy here, a love for life, that even though Canada was great, it was nothing like what we found here. So that also is part of the experience. This memorial was one that we toured as Olim in Modi'in. We had a special tour, and this is very close to Modi'in. It's the 1948 Independence War Memorial. You can see that the memorial itself is a group of slabs of concrete that resemble the tall cypress trees which surround them. And this really gave me I guess a linking or some way of thinking about our soldiers. So I want to show you this picture. This is called the Zahor, and it means remember. And for me, if I want to show our soldiers, I use the symbol of cypress trees. They're tall, strong, and stately. They stand together yet apart. They're usually in a group, and they're usually bordering or around some important place. So I think that's a really apt symbol for our soldiers. Now, this is another place where I have used that symbolism of the cypress trees. This is called Idf Salute. Last year around this time, I was sitting thinking about how I could personally portray my feelings about Yom HaZikaron. And I thought, well, I could use the colors of the IDF berets. That would make sure that everybody was included in the painting. I have them standing together, as I said, united in a group, ready to make that sacrifice, ready to defend the state of Israel and all of us who live here. You can see that there is a path, and the path leads to a community and to creating community. You can see the land behind it. Without the sacrifice of these wonderful soldiers, our young girls and young boys, and every family has been touched by this service and by this sharing. We consider each of these young girls and boys to be like our own sons and daughters. It's just that kind of feeling. So we recognize that without the sacrifice of the IDF, which has only ever fought defensive battles. It has never gone into another country and lost soldiers there and fought battles on foreign land. It has always been for the defense of our land, Eretz Yisrael. So this painting, Idf Salute, I donated the original of it to Yad Labanim in Modi'in, and I'll show you in a moment. Yad Labanim is an organization which supports the families of the fallen soldiers. There is one, I think, in almost, if not every city and town in Israel. It is a special place set aside where there's a memorial set up for the soldiers of that area to be remembered, and the families come and they celebrate certain events. Some of our Hagim events, they celebrate together as a group because their experience is somewhat different from the rest of us. They have also permission to come in with family and friends on the yurtzeit, or the day of that their child fell in battle, and that is also very special. So Yad Labanim, I thought, was the right place for this painting to be hanging, and it is there. Now I'm going to start talking about Yom HaZikaron. The switch, as I said, from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaZikaron takes place a few minutes after sundown with a ceremony on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, in which the flag is raised from half staff to the top of the pole. The president of Israel delivers a speech of congratulations, and soldiers representing the Army, Navy, and Air Force parade with their flags. You can see the young people practicing with flags in the local park, and they do also a flag parade in the local cities. Other than official ceremonies, Israelis celebrate Yom HaZikaron in a variety of ways. Of course, this year it's entirely different. We would normally be down at the amphitheater in Modi'in, the center of Modi'in, where they would have a stage set up, and they bring in a top musical performer to perform for the citizens. Usually there's a crowd of upwards of 40, 50,000 people down there. They close off the streets or the entrance ways to the park with huge intercity buses. So that's a little bit of protection for the people, but it's quite amazing because the citizens take picnic baskets, they take their chairs or blankets to sit on the grass, and they're all together. They are a group, a community, a living example of Israel. And there we transition from Yom HaZikaron into Yom HaTzmaut. We watch on a big screen the ceremony with the lighting of the torches, and then all of a sudden it's Yom HaTzmaut, and there are fireworks, and there are speeches, and there's music, and there's great celebrating amongst the people. And I'm going to show you a very special activity that we took part in. When we first made Aliyah, we signed up with a group of volunteers of parents. We did this for a couple of years that went to IDF bases, not always the same base. You would be assigned a base somewhere where the soldiers were on duty. They couldn't go home to celebrate the holiday with their families. They had to stay on base. So we as a group, as a volunteer group, got all the supplies together. People brought their own barbecues. They bought or had donated the food for the occasion, and they took their families. They packed up in the car, they took their families, and off they went to a base. On this particular base, we were in the northern part of the Negev, and it was a base for recruits. Really, they started their training here, so it was a very special experience. In this picture, you can see the women are at the tables getting all the accompaniments to the meal prepared and working together again as a team. In this picture, the men have their turn and they're setting up their barbecues, and again, it was a joyous occasion because everybody wanted to say thank you. They wanted to show that they appreciated the service and the heroism of the IDF. In this picture, you can see the soldiers sitting down to their barbecue and enjoying it, along with the volunteers. In this picture, we've finished the barbecue and they're getting ready to do their part in this sharing experience. And here we are. The way Israelis often express their joy of life and their just general appreciation for one another and for the community. They circle and they dance. They dance in a circle. This one, they included the volunteers who had gone down and their children. The whole families joined in with us. It's really amazing because it's really the start when families, when children see the respect and the love shown towards the IDF soldiers, they carry that on. It's not a horrible thing for most of them to know that they're going to be participating in this service, that they're going to, at the age of 18, become a member of the IDF and serve their country. It turns them from noisy, rowdy, undisciplined teenagers, for the most part, into mature, responsible, kind, generous, really all the good traits of adults. And we're very, very proud of our IDF soldiers. So this volunteerism to participate in a barbecue, I think they're still doing it for the lone soldiers. I don't know if there are others going on. We stopped at the point that our son was actually in the IDF because we had to provide a nice Yom HaZikaron experience for him when he actually got to come home. Now, the second, tomorrow during the day, the very big celebration that usually takes place is a military plane flyby, and we've been to that in Tel Aviv to see it. We've been down to a base in the south as well where the Air Force is situated, and they bring out some of the older planes and they fly them in formation, and some of the newer planes as well, and it's a great celebration to see the Israeli Air Force and their strength as they fly over. This year, this is not going to happen in quite the same way. Coronavirus has changed everything for these celebrations. So I believe that they're going to have a shortened version of the flyover with helicopters tomorrow, and they're going to specifically be flying over medical centers to thank the doctors and nurses for their service. Okay. Generally, we all get to participate in hanging our flags from the balconies of our apartments and windows and everywhere. I would say that probably 2/3 of the citizens actually do hang up an Israeli flag, and they put them on their cars, and it's the main streets in Modi'in, for instance, are lined with the Israeli flags. They're put out by the municipality ahead of time, and it's just a joy to see this sea of Israeli flags waving in the wind. It again creates a feeling of tremendous unity and pride in the country. So the last thing that I would like to finish up with is what Independence Day is really all about, and that's the proclamation of independence for the state of Israel. And David Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel, had this put together. I guess he had a very short period of time to put this declaration together. The provisional government knew that the British would be leaving in 1948. They knew that they would be leaving, and they wanted to have this declaration made before they had actually vacated, because the British had been given the mandate for the state of Palestine, and they wanted to make sure that Israel was able to fulfill the support that had been given them to recreate a Jewish state. So let me read just a bit from it for you. The land of Israel was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Here they first attained to statehood, created cultural values of national and universal significance, and gave to the world the eternal book of books. After being forcibly exiled from their land, the people kept faith with it throughout their dispersion and never ceased to pray and hope for their freedom to return to it and for the restoration in it of their political freedom. Impelled by this historic and traditional attachment, Jews strove in every successive generation to reestablish themselves in their ancient homeland. In recent decades, they returned in their masses. They made deserts bloom, revived the Hebrew language, built villages and towns, and created a thriving community controlling its own economy and culture, loving peace, but knowing how to defend itself, bringing the blessings of progress to all the country's inhabitants, and aspiring towards independent nationhood. In the year 56-57, which was 1897 in calendar time, at the summons of the spiritual father of the Jewish state, Theodor Herzl, the first Zionist Congress convened and proclaimed the right of the Jewish people to national rebirth in its own country. This right was recognized in the Balfour Declaration of the 2nd of November, 1917, and reaffirmed in the mandate of the League of Nations, which in particular gave international sanction to the historic connection between the Jewish people and Eretz Israel, and to the right of the Jewish people to rebuild its national home. On the 29th of November, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution calling for the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Yisrael. The General Assembly required the inhabitants of Eretz Yisrael to take such steps as were necessary on their part for the implementation of that resolution. This recognition by the United Nations of the right of the Jewish people to establish their state is irrevocable. This right is the natural right of the Jewish people to be masters of their own fate, like all other nations, in their own sovereign state. Accordingly, we, members of the People's Council, representatives of the Jewish community of Eretz Yisrael and of the Zionist movement, are here assembled on the day of the termination of the British mandate over Eretz Yisrael, and by virtue of our natural and historic right, and on the strength of the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel to be known as the State of Israel. This is a document which is kept in which is on display in the Knesset. You can also go to the historic museum on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv, where Independence Hall, and the presentation that they have there you won't leave without having tears in your eyes. Just the whole scene of having created the State of Israel. I will just mention one more thing from this proclamation. Sometimes people question whether Israel is democratic or religious or a mixture of both, or what is it exactly? Well, the State of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, and it will be faithful to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. That's quite a list of things. And yes, Israel, although not perfect, does a very good job in upholding those principles. And that's what our celebration of Independence Day, or Yom HaZikaron, is all about. I guess the only thing left really to talk about is how we can have fun on this Yom HaZikaron when we are mostly confined to our homes and certainly our cities and towns and not able to move around and celebrate. Normally, Israelis take to the parks. They have a mangal or barbecue with their family and friends, and they just fill the parks with this across Israel. They enjoy being in the outdoors. Some people go camping. There are usually fireworks celebrations. That's at night. Like tonight, there would normally be 2 sets of firework displays, and you can actually sit out on your balcony and see the fireworks going off in cities all around you. So right across Israel, people are coming together in unity to celebrate this transition from remembering the sacrifice of our fallen who sacrificed their lives to build and defend the state of Israel, which is really important because it puts us as part of a chain of people from the past, or people who have provided for the creation and development of the state, and those who are here now continuing as a united people and working towards maintaining this for the future, well into the future. So we wish everybody a happy Yom HaZikaron, however you're going to celebrate during the day tomorrow, and we'll look forward to understanding and appreciating this tradition. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. All right. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Wow. I could have just listened to you go on and on. Did everyone enjoy that? That was amazing.
שאני לעצמי ואתה לא איתי, מה אני כשאני בנפרד?